Hi, I'm Michelle Jorgensen, and I'm here with the Mount Mahogany Steak Self-Reliance training videos. I am really excited about today's topic. As we've discussed the things that we would like to do on these training videos, one thing that came up a lot was water storage. Now, a lot of you I know have water stored. You have those big blue buckets in your garage, but you don't necessarily know what to do with it, how long they last, what you're supposed to do to put water in there, how to rotate the water, all those kinds of things. And even if there was an emergency, what else you would do to get water if that water was gone. So we're going to discuss all of those things today. The first thing I want to talk about is why water is so important. I had a comment and someone said, why don't we start with 72-hour kits? Now I want you to think right now about possible emergencies for our area. A lot of the emergencies that we may encounter could be things like severe weather, perhaps an earthquake, civil unrest. All of these things would keep us in our homes. So if we stay in our homes, we're going to need food and we're going to need water. We aren't going to need to evacuate in a lot of these things, and a 72-hour kit is mostly used if you evacuate. So we're going to focus on food and water first. There's a rule of 3, and the rule of 3 says that we can survive 3 minutes without oxygen, 3 days without water, and 3 weeks without food. Now I know we'd get hungry in 3 weeks' time, but you'd actually survive. So that puts water ahead of food as far as what's important to store. So that's why we're starting with water today. So if there was an emergency, I want to run you through some things that you need to think of right off the bat to take care of in your home. The first thing that you're going to do if the water supply has not been contaminated is you're going to fill up all your bathtubs. You're going to use cold water, and I'll explain why in a minute, but you're going to put a plug in your bathtub and probably add an extra layer of plug, even if you put a bowl over top of your plug, so that the water will stay in. A lot of our bathtubs leak over time. So fill up all your tubs first. Then you're going to turn off the water supply to your house. The reason you're going to do that is because as soon as some kind of disruption happens to the water supply on a city level, it contaminates everything that comes through those pipes. So you don't want contaminated water coming into your home. So if you don't know how to turn off your water, that's family home evening topic number 1. Take your whole family, everybody, because dad may be at work, mom may be at work, it may be kids that are home. Take everybody to your water shutoff valve to your home and show them how to do it. That's number 2. So fill your tubs, then turn off your water. The third thing you're going to do is you're going to drain your pipes, the existing water in your pipes. So I want to walk you through how to do this. You're going to go to the faucet at the topmost faucet in your home. So if you have an upstairs, that's the one I'm talking about, and you're going to turn it on to cold. Then you're going to turn the bottom faucet on. So if you have a basement, the faucet at the bottom of your home, you're going to turn it on to cold. Now remember, you want to save every drop of water that comes out of these faucets. So make sure you have something, a bowl, something that you're going to be able to put water into, a 5-gallon water bucket, something as that water drains. But what will happen when you have both of those faucets on is every bit of water is going to be able to drain with gravity from the top all the way to the bottom. So you're going to get the most of the water collected at the bottom, that bottom faucet. So make sure you have something to keep that water in down there. So that's step number 3. The fourth thing to do to gain water in an emergency is to drain your water heater. Now you don't have to do all these things at once, remember. As long as you've shut off the water to your home, you don't have contaminated water coming in anymore. But these are sources of water in your home. So the fourth thing is to drain your water heater. Now what we have is we have an instruction sheet taped onto the side of the water heater because there are instructions for how to do that and how to not get burned. So on the Steak newsletter site, there's going to be supplementary materials for all of this, and I've included a how to drain your water heater sheet so that you can tape it to your water heater as well. So those are 4 ways to get water out of your home that has nothing to do with those blue barrels stored in your garage right now. Remember, you want to use as much water as you can accessible to you before you even touch your stored water. So that's the first thing to do in an emergency. Okay, now let's talk about that stored water. So there's a lot of different types of water you can store. You can store commercially bottled water like this. The good thing about commercially bottled water is that this will actually last you years. So what we've done is we have a case of water, the smaller bottles than this, but we have a case of water underneath every person's bed in our home. Because think about it, and except for your kids' socks and things that they don't want to pull out of there, what else goes underneath the bed? So we put a case of bottled water under everybody's bed. And if you have 4 cases stored for each person, that's actually enough for 2 weeks of water. So if there's extra room, put more cases of water under there. The expiration on this is actually 2 years, but I think it'll last much, much longer than that, probably as long as the bottle will last. The bottle will dissolve before the water goes bad inside. So commercially bottled water is a great way to store water. A lot of you, like we said, we talked about the blue barrels that are in your garage. Those are great ways to store water as well. But I want you to know a couple of things about it. First is, talk has been that you need to have that off of the concrete. So if you have it in a garage or in a basement, it shouldn't be touching the concrete. It probably would take a long time for chemicals from the concrete to leach through that plastic and contaminate the water, but it's probably worth being safe rather than sorry. So easy things to do that are some cheap industrial tiles or just some 2x4s to set it on. The other thing people always wonder about is, do I need to put chlorine in that water? So the quick and easy answer is, if you have filled that barrel from commercially treated water, in other words, the water that comes out of your tap, it already has chlorine in it. You don't need to worry about putting anything in that water if you've stored it. And most of us really don't have a water source other than that commercially treated water, so it's probably what's in your barrels. Do you need to rotate that water? Not if you have a source for purifying and filtering after you've pulled that water out, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. So you may not even have to rotate that water. So fill those barrels up, put them in the back of your garage, and they're going to be there for when you need it. There's also a lot larger tanks than the 50-gallon barrels. Those are great to have. Again, same rules apply. Keep them off the concrete if possible. You don't have to put chlorine in if it's treated water that you've put in, and it's going to last a long time. You don't need to rotate it. One thing you do need to think about storing if you have those blue barrels, this is a bung wrench, and this is something you're going to need to be able to open that barrel. So the last thing you need in an emergency is to not be able to know how to get to the water. The other thing you may need is a pump and a siphon. And this is really dirty and disgusting, and it has spider webs on it because it's been out by my barrels in my garage. This is something else you need to store if you have any of those larger tanks. So make sure you have those things stored along with your water barrels. And I'll put a supply list on that Steak newsletter website as well, so that you can see where to get any of these things. All right, so let's now talk about what do we do in an emergency if we are using other water sources other than what we have stored that has chlorine in it, other than what we've gotten from our pipes or our water heater. What if we're in a long-term emergency and we want to use some rainwater, or we want to use water that's come out of a ditch somewhere? We're using water from anywhere we can get it. So there are ways that you can use that kind of water. Now let's talk a little bit about two things that has to happen to water to make it drinkable. The first is it has to be filtered. Filtered is taking out the chunks. That's the easiest way I've had to think about it. So as you run something through the filter, it's going to take out the mud, the sticks, the bugs, the dirt, those kinds of things. And there's many things you can use for filter. This is a cheap and easy thing to store. This is coffee filters. You can get these for pennies. So coffee filters, a couple layers of that, run the water through it, and it's going to be your first filtering. Another thing is just cotton sheeting or t-shirts or anything of that sort, just cotton material. This is a sheet I got from a thrift store. This can actually be used for a lot of things in emergency, but a couple layers of this into a bucket is a great first filter. There also will be a picture on that Steak newsletter site of a do-it-yourself homemade filter using clay from your yard, gravel from your yard, sand, and activated charcoal. This is some activated charcoal. It can be used for a lot of things as well, but it's a great filter and even starts to purify the water. So these are things that I've stored just in case I need to be able to clean water. Now remember, this is only step number one. This filters, it takes the chunks out. It doesn't necessarily take out contaminants. So that's what purifying does. Purifying is going to take out any contaminants, any chemicals, any things that are going to make you sick. So you're going to need to purify after you filter. There's some easy things to do. This is a water, actually this should go over here. Sorry, that's a water preserver concentrate. These are water purification tablets. So you place these in the water and it's going to purify. Remember, filter first, purify second. These are an easy, small thing to store. These are a great thing for a 72-hour kit because they're so small, but you're not going to be able to do a lot of water with this. This is pool shock or calcium hypochlorite. This is wonderful as a purifier because this container right here will purify 80,000 gallons of water. The way you use this is you basically turn this into Clorox. The reason we're not storing Clorox to purify is because Clorox has a very short shelf life, about 6 months. So you put Clorox in your storage room, 6 months later, it's not really going to do you much good. This will. So you mix, and I'll have the proportions on the website, but you mix about a tablespoon of this with a couple of gallons of water, and that creates, in essence, Clorox for you. So now you take that solution and you add it to the water that you're trying to purify. That's going to get you a lot of water purified for not a lot stored. Make sure when you're buying Pool Shock that you get one that has just calcium hypochlorite in it. A lot of them have other things like colorants and things that you don't want in your water. So I will put a source for this as well. Now, these are things that I think every household should have at least one version of. These items filter and purify in one step. There's small items for small amounts of water, and there's bigger ones for larger amounts of water. So let's go through a couple. This is called a life straw. Life straw because it will keep you alive. You can drink this straight out of a river, straight out of a stream, but it's not very big, so it's going to be for one person. And as someone told me, you might die just trying to suck it out because it really doesn't come out very easily. So these are good things to try out ahead of time. This is called a Sawyer water filtration system. It filters and purifies as well, all in one. It goes into a water bottle. So this is something that I have in my car, that I have in my 72-hour kits. We have small ones like this for use when we're out and about. This is also something I have in the 72-hour kits, and it's called a Berkey water bottle. And what it has is it has a carbon filter inside of the water bottle. So the water comes in, and the only water that you can get out of the bottle is sucked through that filter and then up the straw. So like I said, these are in my 72-hour kits because they're great for carrying, for portability. It's going to be really hard if you're doing this for a long-term solution for a whole family because everybody would have to have their own. The only water you'd get for drinking, for cooking, for anything is going to come out of this bottle. So this is really a short-term or portable source. These are longer-term versions of things. So I have a couple. This is the gold standard. It's called Berkey. I have one that we use just on a daily basis in our kitchen. And it is our water source on an everyday, everything we drink and everything we cook with use. It's much larger than this because we go through a lot of water in our house. This is a little portable one called a Berkey Light. Either one works great. And the way they work is the water goes in the top section. There's a filter, a ceramic filter in that top section, and the water filters through it. It then drains into the bottom section, and there's a spigot, and that's where you get the water out. This is a very, very efficient and effective filter and purifier. You can put water from pretty much anywhere into the top section of this, and you're going to be able to have drinkable water come out in the bottom. This is worth the money if you have the money. Now, if you don't have the money, that's okay. I have a couple other options for you. You can buy the Berkey filters, just these filters alone, and you can put them in a couple of 5-gallon buckets and build your own Berkey. That's a less expensive way to do this. There is also, and I'll put sources for this online, there is also a kit that you can buy that has a different kind of ceramic filter that the water passes through, and it comes complete with a kit with this spigot tube, siphon tube with a spigot and instructions for how to turn this and 2 5-gallon buckets into this. This can be made in total for $50. So this is a very inexpensive do-it-yourself version of an expensive, very worth it filter, but for a lot less money. So this I would have at minimum. I would have this in every home because now you can take water from your roof, from your ditch, from your garden, from anywhere and make it drinkable in any emergency. The last thing I want to talk about is boiling. You've probably heard a lot about boiling. Now boiling doesn't filter, remember, boiling purifies, and boiling does purify. So the rule of thumb is that you have to bring it to a rolling boil. That's the trouble, is in an emergency situation, it may be difficult to get water to a rolling boil. We may be using all of the firepower we have just to cook our food. So rolling boil is kind of hard, and you're supposed to keep it at a rolling boil for 10 minutes. That's a long time to keep something boiling, but it's a great way to purify water. So if you need to purify water, boiling will work. This is called a WAPI. Mini multi-fuel water pasteurization indicator. What this is something that can be used in a sun oven. A sun oven is an oven that you put outside in the sun, and the sun is the only way that heats it. You can put this in a sun oven with water, and it will tell you if the water has reached the right temperature to become pure. This is very inexpensive. I think this was maybe $5, if that. I'll put a source for this as well. This is a way that you don't have to bring your water to a rolling boil to be able to make it purified. You stick it outside in your sun oven and let the sun do the work, and then this tells you, am I purified or not? So this is a lot of information about water purification, water storage. I know it's a lot, but what I want you to do is just think simple right now. I want you to think about how am I going to get water out of my home if I need it, including my water heater. So download that water heater instruction sheet, tape it onto the side of your water heater. Show everybody in your house where that turnoff valve is. Second thing is just have some way to purify and filter water. Like I said, this would be my choice. This or this would be my choice because you can skip all of that if you have these two things, one of these two things. Maybe this for long term to take care of a lot. Make sure you have some water stored for short-term emergency. Say your water just went out for 2 days. You just need enough for 2 days. Have some bottled water underneath everybody's bed. Those are some starting points that I want you to start with. You don't have to have all of these things. Just pick a few and start this month. This month is the goal for water storage. By the end of January, have these things in your home ready to go. And then next month we'll tackle another topic, but just one thing at a time. Thank you so much for watching today, and we are going to be doing these every single month, so make sure you catch every month as we go along. Can't wait to see you again next month.